everyone, and welcome to Housed, the Shared Living podcast, the final instalment live from UKREiiF. I'm Deenie Lee from the Property Marketing Strategists.
I'm Dan Smith from Resi Consultancy and Verbaflow AI.
And I'm Sarah Canning from the Property Marketing Strategists.
We are recording live from UKREiiF. We do have some people in the audience, but I think a lot of people are on the train home, and I think we will be joining them very soon. But before we do anything, I think we do have to thank our sponsors, Payer, for this live episode. Payer is a rent payment platform built for PBSA. Payer lets your international students pay rent from anywhere in the world on any card scheme, digital wallet or local payment method, including Union Pay, WeChat Pay and Alipay. And here's the part operators love: no card fees to the operator or landlord, no chargeback risk, and low OPEX across your finance team. One platform, one checkout, rent settled instantly. Find them at mypayer.co.uk. So how are you doing, guys? How are you feeling?
I was flagging, and then the last session that we did, I interviewed the MP of Building Safety and Charlie, the Building Safety Regulator, and actually it re-energised me. I think I was a bit apprehensive about interviewing them, but actually during the course of the summit, there was actually quite a lot of positivity about Gateway 2 and that they're seeing improvement. So actually it kind of warmed me up a little bit to the theme. And then when I got in the flow of it, I felt a bit re-energised. So it has been a long 3 days. We've been incredibly busy at the summit. You know, we've run out of headphones on more than one occasion. But I think I will have a nap on the train, basically, on the way back.
I wish I could. I'm driving back. But yeah, it was good that George Dyer yesterday from Watkin Jones was really positive about the changes that they're seeing in Gateway 2. And yeah, I mean, I know you were ever so slightly nervous. Like, it's very rare to see you nervous, and you did a brilliant job on that, because admittedly a lot of the questions were sent in beforehand, so we knew exactly what was going to be said for the most part. But pulling it all together, I think, yeah, well done, because that was the big one that I think we were all kind of gearing up to. But yeah, I think we're all, I wouldn't say jaded, because we were very sensible in the evenings, and that is absolutely the key to surviving UKREiiF. I think it's been great fun though. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you guys have too.
It's been fantastic, and I think, you know, we put a seed of this idea together a year ago, and actually really all we were going to do was do a fringe event one night and done and dusted, and we've ended up organising this whole thing for 3 days, so all credit to us. And I think you organise, the thing with event planning, you can organise as much as you can, but when you get here you're kind of left to just see how it rolls and what happens. And I think we've all been amazed, not amazed, maybe that's the wrong word, but I think we've just really appreciated that actually all that hard work has paid off, and every single session has been pretty much packed. I don't think we've had any sessions that haven't been full, and I think because of the way we're set up, so our listeners that are listening back that weren't here, we're in a co-working space. It's normally used for co-working, and there's a bar next to us, but actually because we've got headphones, it's not even just the people in front of you that are listening. There's people sitting in the coffee bar over on the other stairs, so it's been brilliant and well attended. I
think the space has really helped, and we lucked out because we were supposed to have the yoga studio next door, which actually would have been, I just think, quite limiting and a bit enclosed, and we could have had a tent, and that would have been potentially a little hot at times, and I think we've absolutely nailed it. So we've just secured next year already, just to let people know that, you know, we will be doing House, the Shared Living Summit next year at UKREiiF.
And this is what such a good team we are. We haven't actually had that conversation,
and we didn't bat an eyelid. We were like, oh, okay.
But I think individually we've all had conversations. We haven't really had time to have many conversations over the last 3 days, but I think we all knew that we wanted to do it again, and we had to do it again. And I think
I think all the audience was talking as next year. It was just an assumption really that we are doing this. I think the thing, I guess, that has spurred us on to probably do it is the audience, because clearly there is a demand for a joint shared living summit that has brought all the different shared living sectors together. And we didn't know, I'd say probably most of the people in most of the audiences, genuinely, you know, and that's not us, you know, sometimes we go to a lot of the same events and we see a lot of the same people, which is lovely, but actually we didn't want that. You know, it was a very, very conscious decision, and our good friends at the ARL helped us pull some of the panellists together that we didn't know so well. So actually a lot of the panellists we were watching almost basically in real time. We were watching it like the audience, because we didn't know them. We didn't know what they were going to say, and that complemented the balance really of what we were trying to do.
And I think that's mission accomplished. I think like this was about bringing the shared living sector together so that PBSA and BTR and co-living aren't being in silos and trying to deal with what we know is a challenging landscape on their own. And actually, I think that was proven. I think that was mentioned on day one by a couple of people that are used to coming to these events and speaking to an audience of people they know and just looking at the audience go, oh, actually, I don't know all of you, and that's quite refreshing and quite different. So I think that is definitely a tick for us.
I think the other thing that we consciously decided not to do was to silo the sectors in the panels. We had a session about not creating silos, so we thought, well, therefore we can't create silos. So every single panel had representatives from different parts of the shared living sectors, which gave it real balance, some debate sometimes, and challenge. And you know, as everybody knows that is a regular listener to House, that is what we're all about. We talk about the elephants in the room, the challenging conversations, and I think having, you know, the different people from the different sectors meant there were lots of learning opportunities. I think everybody would have come away from every single panel having learned something that they didn't already know.
I completely agree. And the thing that I took most heart from was the fact that we were learning things. Like it wasn't just the same old people on stage saying the same things where you can predict exactly what's going to be said. It was, and that wasn't just because we put Joss on the last panel. Every single panel had something to learn from it. And I think whether you were in BTR, co-living, single-family housing, student housing in some way, shape or form, or even later living, we could all learn something from the panelists, but also then the networking that was going on as well. Like I loved that we created this base and this hub for the shared living sectors, and that, you know, we saw that work really well for our sponsors, firstly because they could hold court and say, hey, look, we're a part of this, but also the networking drinks, and yeah, it's just I think that worked really well.
I just have to tell you something really funny. And just before, a gentleman came up to me and said, well, what is this? What is How's the Shared Living Podcast? And I explained it, and he said, oh, I'm a planner. I've never heard of co-living.
That says a lot.
Oh, gosh.
So if nothing else, we have educated that gentleman about co-living because he learnt a lot from being here.
That's good. So I thought what would be quite good is we just go back over, if we can remember Tuesday. I know it's been a long 3 days, but it might be good to just go back over the panels we had on Tuesday. What were your favourites? We started with the question time with the sector experts, which I was busy, even though it was the first session, but it was a good session.
That's when I knew it had worked, that, you know, when people really turned up, because we had a full house for the podcast, and that was great. And then the sector experts came in, and it was completely full. Like, you couldn't get any more people in, and that was. I was actually a little worried we were going to get told off because people were spilling out into the bar area and things like that. But we had some really.
Were you really worried you were going to get told off?
I was not worried we were going to get told off. But no, I think we had so many good people on that panel that it started really strong. My worry then was, how do you follow that? Like, have we peaked? Is that as
but
good
I think
as we'll
that
get?
ability to just hand it over to the audience, I think was what was really nice. Actually, there wasn't really a preamble. There's an introduction, and then it's the audience got to ask questions, and I think that was a really nice format.
I think what struck me in the first day as well is, as well as obviously the audience taking over with those question time sections, is we deliberately handed most of the sessions over to moderators so that we didn't have to host all of them, so that we could enjoy it, and also we didn't want people to get completely sick of us. And oh my word, the moderators were fantastic. Like, they brought their A game. They were so prepared. I then got really intimidated about the panel that I had to moderate, because I thought, how can I follow that? So, and but not just the moderators, the panelists as well. So I think it set the bar really high on Tuesday. I think the topics that we had question time with the sector experts. We had, can the shared living rented sectors solve the housing crisis? Beyond labels, the end of residential silos. And then the AI panel, and it felt like a very important day. It kind of almost set the tone. I don't think, if I remember rightly, when we put it together, we tried to balance the days out, but until you do it, you don't really know if it's the right balance, but I think it was.
No, and I think they were great sessions, and I think that's setting that question about how the shared rented living sectors can solve the housing crisis. And I think, if I remember rightly, that session was quite positive, and about, yes, we've got a role to play, and yes, there's things that we can do, and there's lots of challenges, but overall, yes, I think there was also discussion around actually that toying between actually people still want to buy, and actually co-living BTR is providing that stopgap for people as they build up their deposit to enable them to buy.
That's what I actually really took from that, and you know, that it wasn't just a unanimous yes. there was an acknowledgement that that there is still an ambition for people to own their own homes, and renting in some ways can help pave the way on the way to that. It wasn't just a complete, whitewash of renting is the way forward. I think it was balanced.
Well, I think we also, sorry, Dan, I think we also had Chris Lee from Own Homes, which I think showed that diversity, that actually there's a product that is rental and then moves you into home ownership.
I think the mood across Tuesday especially, but across all of the days, was positive. It was realistic, but we're looking for positive realism here. We've kind of coined that phrase, and I think part of that is probably because they felt like this was everyone knows if they've listened to House that we'll focus on the challenges, but we are very action based as well. We want to make sure that we're really helping the sector, and I felt like all of the conversations we had, there was a real understanding of the challenges that we've got, but also of the opportunities, and so it was nice to be acknowledging of the challenges and whether that be the Building Safety Act and Gateway 2, or whether that be what's happening with the Renters' Rights Bill or student numbers or whatever it might be, but actually that people are taking action. They're acknowledging that this is where we're at and that there are opportunities out there. So I think that really set the tone. That Tuesday really set the tone for how everyone sort of used their platform, as it were, on stage. To be optimistic but also acknowledge the challenges as well.
I think just before we go on to Wednesday, I just want to say that Kellyanne from the Class Foundation did show her anger about the frustration in PBSA. I think she also swore on stage, which is like typical for House and what we wanted, really, that actually this isn't just...
I think that her reaction to it was, I think some of the other panellists were being maybe a bit too polite, and Kellyanne said, no, that is not right, and she was pissed off about it, and she told everyone, and we love that.
Mission and her job to do that.
But that's also what she's there for as well, and we know how successful she's been in Europe with impacting policy. You can pinpoint some of the policies that Kellyanne and the Class Foundation have had a serious impact on. Now, what we need is that to happen in the UK. And so, we're all looking to her, but we're looking to the ARL. We're looking to Brendan and Graham and the team there, and we're looking to RE UK and the team there to previously the BPF to really start driving policy and driving change and talking about those challenges within government as well.
But don't you think, like the session that we had on Tuesday, question time with the sector experts, and then the session that we just had earlier about viability and affordability and flexibility, we had the right people on the stage next to each other, and especially in that last session that you moderated, Deenie, you kind of suggested... No, but you kind of suggested that maybe this is the start, really, of kind of everybody working together. And actually, Deanie's favourite subject is why can't we just build homes for people to live in? We have covered a lot of the silos, planning restraints, and everybody's on the same page. So I think if everybody's on the same page, there are those, supportive bodies that can push forward. And I don't think anybody is not in favour of coming together, really. It doesn't feel BTR, PBSA, co-living, it doesn't feel competitive.
But I think that's where, again, you look at some of our key sponsors there. We've got Collegiate and we've got Abodus and that, we had Fresh obviously doing the podcast, and I think what was really heartening to see was that they were all chatting together, and not in the cartel mentality in any way, shape or form, just to be very clear on that, but just in how do we better the sector? Let's have these honest conversations about making sure that we're sharing best practice. And again, that's something that I think we've always tried to advocate for. Share your learnings, mistakes, all of the benefits that of some of the things that you've done, and that. Choosing those panellists, we were very careful, because the last thing you want when you're setting up an event is to shoehorn a sponsor on stage, and so we were really careful with who we chose. And even when people pulled out, which that has surprised us quite how many people did pull out, we made sure that we filled that with the right person ultimately, and that's very difficult to do, but I think, again, we're very grateful to those sponsors for enabling us to do that, and not kind of saying, can you put so-and-so on this panel and so-and-so on this panel? And we do see the other events where, you'll have investor, property management system, and then it's like, well, what are they going to talk about there, and why is that, why are we creating the odd one out? There wasn't agreement on all of the panels, as we saw from Kellyanne, but ultimately, I think that the focus for us was create balanced panels and make sure that we are having those honest conversations. So yeah, I think it was a labour of love.
I think we've all seen our sponsors as partners. They've all contributed something. We're totally really not up for sponsors that just want to stick a logo on it. We actually want to get value from it, and then from us as well, and that definitely has happened to help us put this on.
So day 2 was Wednesday, and we started with probably our most provocative title of In a Trump World, Does the greater good of sustainability, DEI and social impact still matter? And I actually think that session was actually really positive. In the UK, I think people recognise that this is still a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do. It's the right way to do business. And actually, whatever the rhetoric that comes out of Trump and America doesn't really matter.
No, we're just ignoring it, not influencing the UK at all.
And Europe as well. And I think that was the really interesting thing, that people are acknowledging that Europe has probably got this right in terms of sustainability and social impact and DE&I, and that was really heartening to see, because yes, of course, some of the American capital and maybe some of the American operators are taking a bit more of a lax view and saying, hey, look, okay, we don't need to do all of this stuff. But it felt like all of the operators that we spoke to, especially those that are, in student housing, but also across BTR and co-living, they are very focused on what's the right thing to do. How do we do some good? So I loved that panel. I thought it was excellent. And I think more of that, please.
Yeah, I think there was lots of positivities actually bearing in mind the challenging environment we're in. Actually, I think Sarah and I were just having a conversation. I think overall the theme was that yes, it's challenging, yes, it's difficult, but this is where we are. This is the situation we're working in. So let's find the opportunities. Let's innovate. Let's be creative. And people might not have all the answers right now, but they're certainly searching for them, I think.
The next panel though, this is. Yeah, but for me, this is by far the standout, and I know that this is what the property marketing strategist stands for, effectively making sure that we're talking to the residents. And actually, I had a sidebar with Joss and the team saying how much you guys have really championed that, and other operators are starting to realise that we really need to listen to the residents more and not just pay lip service to it. And I put that on a post on LinkedIn, and quite a few of the universities have commented on it and said, we're already doing that. We're not paying lip service. Some of it is that we just don't have the money to really nail it when it comes to that, bringing them out of their rooms and doing the events and things like that, and really showing that pastoral care. So it is finding that balance. But yeah, I think kudos to both of you for pulling that together, because it was that the headphones went very, very quickly, and the entire room was full, and the takeouts that we got for there were incredible, and it was all operators. There were some very big operators in the room across all of the sectors, really genuinely listening to what they were saying. So yeah, really. Yeah.
And just for our listeners that weren't here, what we had at Question Time was the residents. We had a resident from co-living, a resident from BTR, a resident from PBSA, and a resident from HMO. So we were able to cover the whole spectrum of shared living, apart from later living, which we did try and get. So that would be great.
Which was a nightmare to pull together. That isn't that easy to get those residents there, but very grateful for all the help that we had.
Yeah, and just a shout out to Regeneration Brainery, because they nominated Noah, one of their ambassadors, who is a BTR resident, co-living, and he was so articulate and such a great ambassador for Regeneration Brainery and what they do. So we absolutely loved supporting them, and we had so many of the Regeneration Brainery members here in the audience as well that were learning and asking some really brilliant questions.
Brilliant questions, yeah.
So I think no disrespect to any of our other panels, but I think we probably all have a soft spot for that one.
I think we need to make it longer.
Yeah, definitely.
Next time,
as far as we know, it's never been done at UKREiiF before, and in 4 years of UKREiiF, never having a panel that is residents at a real estate festival, is shocking. It's hard, like you said, Dan, to pull together, and maybe that's why people haven't done it, but it will become a firm fixture on any of our events. However, as Deanie pointed out when moderating, you don't have to wait for a half an hour panel once a year to ask residents. If you are an operator, you have buildings full of them, and Deanie and I very experienced at putting together qualitative and quantitative data on that matter as well. So yeah, it was clearly needed and wanted to do it.
And it wasn't just Noah, that the entire panel was amazing, and they will no doubt have plenty of job offers. I literally had people coming up to me saying, wow, that panel was incredible. incredibly articulate. Can I get their details so that we can actually, get them working with us? But yeah, really, really, really good one.
Yeah. So then we did Regulation Nation and the growing weight of policy and politics on rental living. And again, Regulation Nation, it was probably meant to be quite meaty, quite like there is regulation weighing us down. But again, I think the panellists we got were absolute experts in what they're talking about, and the real positive saying, yes, it's challenging, but it's getting better. And actually, once you get the right resource and the right expertise, both from a government perspective and from a private consultant or a perspective, then we can get through this and we can get better, and it is ultimately there for the greater good. And I think that came across really strongly in that.
Again, I think the mood music has changed from just sitting there moaning about it and shouting into an echo chamber. I really saw that there was some people walking away from that were thinking, right, okay, there's a bit of positivity here, but these are the actions. Like, this is what we need to be doing. Now, some of it is that we need better lobbying across the board. We absolutely need that. And I still don't think we have that sort of fully shared living body that can represent us in government. But ultimately, we know that there's quite a few policies coming down the line. What's the impact of Renters' Rights Bill going to be? Obviously, anything building safety, etc., and planning, of course. I think planning's the next thing where we really have to get involved, and what that's going to look like and who's going to actually lead that, I don't know. But will the government listen? Well, I do feel like there are changes being made. There's some, small improvements and light at the end of the tunnel that doesn't necessarily have to be a train coming straight towards you.
I think it was Sam from Fresh that suggested another good panel would be about refurbs and repurposing as well, which we have added to the notes for our apparently agreed session next year.
It was funny, Sam mentioned that to me as well, and then a few other people came up to me and said, that's actually something that we're looking at now. So I think, really, that's a really good choice for next year too.
I think the session on education, mobility and the future of rental living is what we wanted to achieve from that. Really was kind of to lay out the foundations of, if there are no young people, if there are no students living in a city, there are no graduates. And what does that city look like then? And I think the panel did a really, really great job, moderated by our honorary team member, Jenny. And I think that there's a few things that really stuck out for me. One was with Wyn Evans, who was talking about the attitudes of the public in consultation being so different from when you mention the word student to when you mention the word co-living. And we've got to do something as a sector to change the perspective of what people think a student to be, because actually a student resident doesn't behave any different to a co-living resident, and just because it has the word student on it, we really need to do better. Universities need to do better, as we've discussed on the podcast before, providing good PR about why people should go to university. But once they're there, we need much better PR about what an amazing contribution young people bring to a city. And if you don't have young people, you don't have vibrancy, you don't have dynamism, you don't have workforce, and that's what I really took from that panel.
And then today we started with the marketing session or panel, which I think was brilliant, and it is what we're all about, Sarah, I think. And I think everyone, Marielle, Sam and Sean were brilliant in kind of talking about how marketing is changing, how strategy is important, and how actually, I think, as I said at the end of it, that really marketing has to hit every single bit of a business. And I think that really came across in that session.
I loved that session. I really did. And I thought it was, again, people being really honest. And I think maybe a year or two ago, it would have been a little bit more cloak and dagger with maybe Sean wouldn't have shared a few of the things that she's doing, or, potentially Sam either. And I think there's just this real acknowledgement that it's all to play for. It's all changed. Like, marketing is transforming at light speed. And it's not just AI that's doing that. It's resident engagement, what they're actually looking for, what they're engaging with. And I think the real takeaway, and I'm pleased because it's in some of the work that I've done with Resi Consultancy, we're saying do a day in the life video or whatever it might be. Keep it really simple.
Or go and work with the property marketing strategist.
Well, of course, go and work with the property marketing strategist. But yeah, I've had too many people come to me and say, oh, we're just going to do this fly through in this sexy CGI video, and actually students want to see and residents want to see how they will actually live and how they'll use these spaces. I think that's absolutely key.
But I think what I was trying to get across, and the panel were really great at responding to it, is in your budget line, I think people don't expect to see that kind of content cost money. I think it's very difficult to get budget for that because it looks like it's effortless and you just walk around with a mobile phone and that's, user-generated content kind of thing. But also it's time and consistency, and that takes resource as well. So, it was. I guess the theme of the whole conference really for us has been change, really, and marketing is no stranger to that, really. I think we were conscious with Thursday, a lot of people leave quite early from UKREiiF, so we made sure that we put really, really strong panels on the last day because we wanted to keep people here. That was evident in the marketing panel, but also the rethinking viability with affordability and flexibility in rental living. That was standing room only.
Yeah,
again, we had a great panel. Deanie, you did an amazing job moderating some very big characters. No names mentioned.
no names mentioned, Josh.
Yeah. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier in the podcast, was actually they all had different views, they all had different experiences, they were all coming from a different background, but all seemed to have agreement on things need to change. Maybe we can all work together.
Yeah, it was a great session. I can't tell whether it was easy to moderate or hard to moderate, but it was definitely it was a great chat. And I think I think there was honesty and transparency, and I think partly because it was day 3 and everyone was a bit probably more tired, they were like, actually, I'm just going to go and talk how I feel. And I think that came across in the session.
Do you know what was really refreshing is they kind of all, both, Damien and Michael and Joss, they kind of all shared some regrets of things that they put into buildings in the past that maybe they wouldn't do now. They all got a bit carried away with the amenities arms race. And I've never heard anybody say that, out loud on a panel before. It was almost one of those stand-up applaud moments. And we wouldn't have judged anyone if they had done that, because it was almost mic drop moment.
I think, and we give Joss short shrift because he does talk a lot, but equally he's so passionate about it, and that affordability focus is key, and so really really interested to hear what Abodas had to say. But yeah, you're right. Also, Collegiate and Michael and that I think that entire panel was just very focused on. We've made a few mistakes here and there, but we see the direction of travel. Yes, there's going to be a real focus on affordability and flexibility moving forward. There always will be, but that viability piece, I think that's one of the challenges that we're going to be talking about year after year. I think there's no real change to either of those or any of those topics.
But I think all those organisations, Damien's Hub, Abodas and Collegiate, are actually making progress in this area. They're not just saying they're going to try and do it, they are actually doing it. I think that was great to have them on that panel and talk through, actually, it's still challenging, but it's still important, and we're still going to make this happen some way, creatively, innovatively, in the way.
I think Natalia added to the conversation as well as an architect. It's a slightly different balance on stage, but kind of saying actually their role is really changing. They're having to kind of forward think as architects and think operationally as well. It's they're not just creating buildings and handing them over. They're having to think about longevity in a building and sustainability.
But I think they all talked about the importance of actually the design and doing it early and doing it right and doing it in detail early is the way that you are going to get that affordability. So you're not leaving things open, and I think that came across, that actually there was that respect for, we've got to design the buildings right, and that starts on day dot.
That's what creates efficiency.
And then, Sarah, we had you with the Minister, which was, I know we started our conversation with that, but it was a brilliant discussion and great to have them on the House Summit stage, really.
Yeah, I think it humanised it, if I'm honest, for me, and I hope that's what the audience felt as well. Having the Minister for Building Safety and having the Building Safety Regulator on stage, they're real people. They've been dealing with Grenfell, they've been dealing with humans, and I don't envy them. It's a very, very difficult job, and I think they kind of opened up a little bit about kind of how difficult their job is and how busy they are. I must say they were a pleasure to deal with, them and their teams as well. And like I said, actually it kind of reaffirmed what we'd been hearing anyway, that yes, it is still a challenge, but that certainly the developers that we've had on stage are saying it's getting shorter, it's getting better, getting through Gateway 2. And I think having Sam and Charlie on stage just reminded everybody why that is in place and why it's important. So I'm very grateful to UKREiiF for suggesting that they chose our stage to be on to have that conversation.
When we heard that we had the Building Safety Minister, I was kind of like, how much are we going to actually be able to ask them? And actually, I think, even though it was all scripted, and in the sense of, we knew the questions and don't deviate from the questions, and it was actually a really good opportunity to, you're right, show that there was a real human side behind this. And Charlie, the building regulator, being, the previous London Fire Brigade commissioner, that obviously, he was there at Grenfell at that time. And again, we do have to bring ourselves back round. And I actually think we do quite a good job on the podcast of this, of always saying, look, Grenfell, let's start from there. We know that there's a big reason that we need to build safely, and that is why BTR in particular and student housing, anything reasonably high, struggles with viability at the moment. It's not just that, and I think that humanising it made a big difference to quite a few people in the audience today, to show that this isn't just the government just putting barriers in the way for the sake of it. There is a very real reason. There are very real people behind it, and they're making difficult decisions on a daily basis. So I think we got a lot more out of that than I ever thought we would. So yeah, very grateful to Matt and the team at UKREiiF for putting that session on for it.
And I think that is probably a wrap. Just very quickly, when we come back next year, what do we expect to change?
Ooh.
Oh, that's a big sign.
My brain can't work a year ahead. I think things will have moved on. I think there's been, obviously a lot of ministers use UKREiiF as a platform to talk about changes as well. So, like we said, I think the appetite is there. I think the enthusiasm is there. We're not hearing no anymore. That really has changed from the last year. It's now, like you said at the beginning, Deenie, we are where we are. We can't just sit around and do nothing. We have to work things out. So maybe some of the themes next year might be adaptability, and progress, and, finding those routes to success, because, we're at a real estate conference. Everybody is here to develop, to build, to construct, and that's not going to change in a year's time.
I think it'd be that the shared learnings will be... I think there will be a lot more collaboration, and you can do that without giving away your USP or your secret sauce or whatever else it might be. But that everyone talking amongst themselves and trying to find solutions to some very real problems that we're all dealing with, I think that is going to come to the fore. And I've been pleasantly surprised that we've been a vehicle for that here at UKREiiF. I'm not sure what the vehicle is, back in the UK. Oh, I say back in the UK, we're only in Leeds, but when we get back to the day jobs, gosh, I'm tired. But yeah, I think what I would like to see that's changed is a bit more action, a few more case studies in terms of how to actually build affordable and what flexibility really looks like as well, because it's not just as simple as putting in a short-term booking solution for the summer or whatever it might be. It's what does that look like from the foundational level, and then the viability piece. That's not going to change as far as I'm concerned. I can't really see any of those headwinds dissipating. So, yeah, what challenges are we still moaning about? But what solutions have we found to kind of mitigate some of that as well? So, yeah, I think a bit of change, hopefully.
I think the positivity will continue, and I think that will lead into change, and I think we will see that some of that action has started to happen by next year. So, but we will see. Watch this space. So that just leaves us to say a big thank you to this episode sponsor, payer, and all of our partners for the House Shared Living Podcast Summit. We couldn't have done it without you. So thank you to our platinum partner, Collegiate UK, our gold partners, Aboda Student Living and Utopia, our silver partners, Howard Kennedy, the E-Word and Evolution Sustainability Group and Velasco, our bronze partners, TLG Access Control and Verberflow AI, strategic partners, the Association for Rental Living, and our valued partners, This Is Fresh, Payer, Housing Hand, Escape, Mirror Visuals, Zenly Signs, Jake Jennings, and Loft UK. And of course, a big thank you to Matt Christie and the entire UKREiiF team for all their support, and also to all our team and all the support from Julie and Alex, who have made it possible to make this work here. So a big thank you, and it looks like we'll see you next year. If you have enjoyed either watching our live podcast at UKREiiF or listening to them, please like and subscribe to House, the Shared Living podcast, so you get every single new episode as soon as it is launched. And if you've attended our House Summit, we would love to hear your feedback. We'd love to be back next year. We will be back next year. And I found this focus on rented share living informative and engaging. We'll be taking a week off recording next week. Hallelujah, it is half term. so we can recover in half term, I'm not sure about that, and digest everything, and then we'll be back at the beginning of June for a series of very special episodes covering the key themes and topics our audience have asked for. So we will see you then.